Welcome to the virtual public hearing to discuss improvements on the U.S. Route 67 project south of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. My name is David Wyman. I'm an area engineer with the Southeast District of the Missouri Department of Transportation. Tim Pickett, the project manager, and I will be taking turns providing pertinent information about this project. In order to provide some structure to the hearing, we have compiled an agenda that we will be following. Section 1 will cover some of the actions taken in the past that have helped us get to this point in project development. Section 2 will include discussion about the alternatives that have been evaluated and some details about the access justification report required by the Federal Highway Administration. Section 3 will provide an overview of the improvements planned for the corridor, including some details about currently funded projects. We will also briefly discuss the unfunded sections of the corridor and the actions MoDOT is taking to prepare those areas for future work. Section 4 will focus the discussion on the timelines for the funded sections and when the public will notice construction starting to take place. Section 5 will allow for questions from the public, and members of our project team will be available to provide answers. Thank you again for your interest in this project. We hope that this hearing will be beneficial and informative. The work already completed on U.S. Route 67 in the late 90s and 2000s is considered a huge success, and it is an excellent example of public cooperation between a number of entities. In the fall of 1997, MoDOT initiated the process with the development of an environmental impact statement. This document, which we refer to as the EIS, covered the entire corridor from Fredericktown in Madison County to a point that is 2 miles north of the Arkansas state line. This EIS provided a detailed inventory of all the resources identified within the corridor and also provided preferred alignments for the improved roadway. Through a funding partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Highway 67 Corporation, the Missouri Department of Transportation, and the City of Poplar Bluff, 50 miles of this corridor were improved to a 4-lane expressway. In August of 2011, a ribbon cutting celebrated the completion of this portion of the corridor. However, a significant portion of the corridor remained as a 2-lane highway. In August 2019, the City of Poplar Bluff passed a ballot measure that provided for monies collected through a half-cent sales tax to be directed toward improvements to the corridor south of Poplar Bluff. In addition, Governor Mike Parson unveiled his Governor's Cost Share Plan, which included funding 50% of the construction costs for the first 2 miles of work south of Route 160. In addition, the U.S. Congress passed legislation that designated the roadway from Little Rock, Arkansas to Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, extending to Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and on to Sikeston, Missouri as future I-57. This designation requires that all improvements to this section of the corridor adhere to the standards of an interstate highway. During the project development process, there are several steps that must be taken before a single shovel of dirt can be moved. Once funding had been partially secured, MoDOT began working on a number of these steps. In December 2020, a value engineering study was completed. This process is an industry standard practice where experts evaluate the project as a whole to determine if any scope changes would benefit the schedule, the quality, or the cost of the proposed improvement. In January 2021, the environmental impact statement that had been originally completed 20 years prior was reevaluated. This reevaluation included identification of all the resources within the boundaries of the study and also provided a preferred alignment for the roadway expansion. In April of 2021, we received an approved access justification report from the Federal Highway Administration. This approval provides the necessary approvals needed to modify the Route 160 interchange. The details of the Access Justification Report will now be discussed by Tim Pickett, Project Manager for the improvement.
Hello, my name is Tim Pickett and I'm a Project Manager for MoDOT in the Southeast District assigned to the US 67 Future I-57 Corridor projects. As part of the Future I-57 designation, one of the requirements for design was to make improvements to the existing US 67 158 interchange. We looked at 5 interchange types during the initial screening and landed on 3 alternatives that were studied further and are shown in this slide. Since we are changing the access at the interchange, the results of the study were submitted in an Access Justification Report to Federal Highway and approved in April of 2021. The first alternative was a traditional diamond interchange, something that I would say most of us are familiar with. This design would require no work to be done to the existing bridges. As the traffic volumes increased over time, the design would require the installation of signals at the ramp terminals. One of the heavy traffic movements at this interchange has been the eastbound to northbound traffic movement. This design would require vehicles to yield to traffic before turning onto the northbound ramp. The second alternative was a folded diamond for the northbound ramp, similar to what exists today. This design would require the widening of the existing bridge to allow for an acceleration lane. The curvature of the loop ramp would be improved, but would still fall short of the recommended 35 mile an hour design speed. The design would eliminate the need to yield for heavy eastbound to northbound movements, and this design turned out to be our most costly. The third design and the preferred alternate was a diamond interchange with roundabouts at the ramp terminals. The design would not require any changes to the existing bridges on 67. There would be no signals required as traffic volumes increased. This design had the lowest crash prediction and the lowest cost. The teardrop shape of the roundabout eliminates the need to yield for the heavy eastbound to northbound movement. One of the elements that was consistent for all 3 alternatives was the need to move the east outer road further east, outside the functional area of the interchange. To give you some idea of the phases involved in the 67 corridor, we can take a look at this slide. Starting with Phase 1A in red, this work will be centered around the improvements to the existing interchange at 67 and 158 and 160. The anticipated construction for this phase is to begin in the spring of 2022. Phase 1B will begin just south of the interchange, and it will primarily be new 4-lane on new alignment running parallel along the west side of existing 67 down to County Road 338. The anticipated construction for this phase will begin in spring of 2023. Phase 2, shown in brown, will construct another 2 miles of 4-lane interstate on new alignment parallel to existing 67. This section will pick up at County Road 338 and continue south to County Road 352. An overpass is currently planned at County Road 350. Phases 1A, 1B, and Phase 2 are the only phases at this time that have funding for construction. Phase 3, shown in purple, is approximately 5.2 miles and would take the new 4-lane interstate south of Neelyville to County Road 272. There is currently only funding for design work at this time, and interchange is planned at Neelyville. Phases 1, 2, and 3 would complete the area that has been environmentally screened and was reevaluated and approved in January of this year. That document can be accessed from the project website. Phase 4 in green is a 2-mile section that still needs to be environmentally screened. Our neighbors to the south, the Arkansas DOT, is currently going through the environmental screening process to determine where US 67 might cross at the state line. That should give everyone an overview of what is currently taking place and what to expect in the future as phases 3 and 4 receive funding. Our focus for this meeting will primarily be on phases 1A, 1B, and phase 2. These are the phases that currently have funding for construction. Phase 1A funding was made possible from Governor Parsons' cost share program and the passage of a ballot measure led by the Highway 67 Corporation. Phase 1B and 2 were made possible by the MoDOT cost share program and the passage of a ballot measure led by the Highway 67 Corporation. The completion of phases 1 and 2 will result in 4 miles of new 4-lane in Butler County, with improvements to the interchange at 67, 160, and 158, and the addition of an outer road network. When we look at the preferred alternates, some of the things the design team focused on were ways to improve safety. This design reduces the amount of conflict points and severity of crashes that could occur. The proposed design is predicted to have a 31% reduction in overall crashes. They also look for ways to relieve congestion. This design will remain current and function well as traffic volumes increase and the area grows. They look for ways to address roadway deficiencies. This design removes the existing loop ramps with a traditional diamond layout. The use of roundabouts at the ramp terminals accommodates the heavy traffic pattern of vehicles traveling eastbound to northbound. They look for ways to add to the system continuity. Along with the improvements to the interchange ramps, outer roads will be built for connectivity. Another consideration the design team looked at was the design for truck traffic and the movement of agricultural equipment through the roundabout. If you watch this simulation, you can see the trailer utilizing the mountable truck apron as the truck makes its way through the roundabout.
With any investment of taxpayer dollars, significant benefits should result. By looking at the proposed project, we can easily identify some benefits both in the short term and in the long term. Improving the safety of the roadway is always the priority for any project. Our interstate highway system handles the highest levels of traffic volume, but also has the lowest accident rates. Because these roadways have very stringent design and access management standards, they are able to handle this high volume of traffic in a manner that results in fewer traffic accidents. Innovative intersection designs, like roundabouts, reduce the number of conflict points within an intersection and as a result reduce the number of accidents at that location. Another benefit is improved efficiency within the roadway system. As traffic volumes continue to increase, with forecasts predicting the volume will double in 20 years, moving vehicles from point A to point B in an easy, efficient way is critical to the system as a whole. 4-lane highways provide for very efficient travel. No longer will a single accident result in the closure of the entire roadway. There is redundancy available on the roadway, and this redundancy helps keep moving traffic along. Additionally, enhanced connectivity will allow for the easier transport of goods. The largest movement of freight within the Midwest extends from Chicago, Illinois to Dallas, Texas. Currently, the majority of this freight moves along the I-57, I-55, and I-40 corridors. When these improvements on future I-57 are completed, it will provide an alternate route that will be available to help move freight throughout the Midwest.
Let's take one last look at the project timelines for phases 1A, 1B, and phase 2. The tentative letting schedule for phase 1A, the work at the interchange, is March of 2022, with construction starting as early as April of 2022. The tentative letting schedule for phases 1B and phase 2 would be November of 2022, with construction starting as early as January of 2023. The completion of phase 1A is tentatively December of 2022, and the completion of Phase 1B and Phase 2 is tentatively December of 2023. I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to present to you some of the exciting things happening in Butler County along the US 67 future I-57 corridor. I would encourage everyone participating to please comment or reach out if you have questions about the projects. I would be happy to try and address any questions or concerns you may have. Thank you again for your time.
As we move into the final portion of the public hearing, members of our project team are now going to be available to answer questions. We have two options that are available to you. Option 1 would involve questions that are submitted via the chat feature of the presentation. If you have any questions related to this project, please submit your question now, and we will try to provide you with an answer. The second option would involve the submittal of a question through the comment form included on the project website. All comments will be accepted through August 24th, 2021 via the online form of the project website. The website is as follows: www.modot.org/future I-57. Thank you for your time learning more about the expansion of US Route 67 and future I-57. Please stay tuned as we move into the Q&A portion of the program.